All right, bro. Is we live? I think we live. I'm not. I'm not. I'm honestly not sure if I'm talking through the headphone right now or the goddamn on computer. But we're gonna go with it regardless. I gotta share the screen again. Wants me to share the screen again. What's going on, everybody? Okay, no, I got it. Let's see. We're going back again with another video. I'm so this one I wanted to recap on the as y'all see right there the Berlin conference. I found uh, I found with the meeting, I guess the official paperwork, how they boiled it down, right, and everything. So it's like 14 pages of articles, and we're gonna go ahead and read some of those. I'm gonna read them throughout the days, right? So that excuse my switching. We're gonna go ahead and do that, right? And I wanted to just to finish up some stuff on the Berlin conference because there's a whole lot of other research that I need to do when it comes to the Berlin conference. Uh, a lot to read up as definitely as far as the after effects of what happened. I know I showed a picture of it before, but I do need to do some extra research on all the other things that happened. I read of another conference that happened, which is pretty interesting. But I forgot the name of it. It was it was with all the it was like China and India and some of the West African nations that they got their independence right after this. After these series of events in like 1950 something, I believe it came together. Was talking about that, but regardless, that's not important. That's not what we're here for. We're here for the Berlin Conference, and to read what they actually put in these articles, right? So without further ado, this is the General Act of the Berlin Conference on West Africa, dated I'm assuming February 26, 1885, and you can see all the representatives um, signed by the representatives of the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, and the United States. I mean, not and the United States, the United States of America, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Sweden, Norway, and Turkey, otherwise known as the Ottoman Empire at that time. The General Act of the Conference at Berlin of the hold up, ladies and gentlemen. Plenipotentiaries. I don't know what that mean. What does plenipotentiaries mean? What the? Did y'all watch me like an idiot? Google this. Yep, y'all watching me like an idiot. Google this. But hey, I ain't never heard this word. Plenipotentiary. Tiari. Po- Plenipotentiary. I think I pronounced it right. A person, especially a diplomat, invested with the full power of independent action on behalf of their government, typically in a foreign country. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all do realize that makes so much sense, right? So it's a dude or it's somebody who got the full power to act on behalf of their own government. Uh, Plenipotentiary is a diplomat who has full powers, authorization to sign a treaty or convention on behalf of his or her sovereign. When used as a noun, more generally, the word plenipotentiary can also refer to any person who has full powers. But all right, that's what that means. So, of all the people that got full power to represent and sign the document for their country, sorry, General Act of the Conference at Berlin of the Plenipotentiaries of Great Britain, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, and Norway, Turkey. Otherwise, the Ottoman Empire and the United States, respecting: 1. Freedom of trade in the basin of the Congo; 2. Slave trade; 3. Neutrality of the territories in the basin of the Congo; 4. Navigation of the Congo; 5. Navigation of the Niger. I'm not sure honestly how they pronounce this, because I mean, with another G, we know how that's pronounced, but I'm gonna pronounce it Niger for the time being. If anybody want to correct me on that, by all means. If it's really pronounced the same way as Nigger, let me know. But it always felt right to say Niger. But hey, it could be me. And 6. Rules for future occupation on the coast of the African continent. So they're just like, hey, all right, hey, there we go. And hey, you know who in the name this is done by, ladies and gentlemen, in the name of God Almighty, from sea to shining goddamn sea. In the name of God Almighty. Her Majesty the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Empress of India, His Majesty the German Emperor, King of Prussia, Prussia, His Majesty the Emperor of Austria, King of Bohemia, etc., and Apostolic King of Hungary, His Majesty the King of the Belgians, His Majesty the King of Denmark, His Majesty the King of Spain, the President of the United States of America, the President of the French Republic, His Majesty the King of Italy, His Majesty the King of the Netherlands, Grand Duke of Luxembourg, etc., His Majesty the King of Portugal and Algarves, etc., His Majesty the Emperor of all of Russias, Russia, Emperor of all of the Russias. I think that's how that's pronounced. His Majesty the King of Sweden and Norway, etc., and His Majesty the Emperor of the Ottomans, wishing in a spirit of good and mutual accord. I'll repeat that again. Wishing in a spirit of good and mutual accord to regulate the conditions most favorable to the development of trade and civilization in certain regions of Africa, and to assure to all nations and advantages of free navigation on the two chief rivers of Africa flowing into the Atlantic Ocean. Um, being desirous, on the other hand, to obviate the misunderstanding and disputes which might in future arise from new acts of occupation. Uh, possession? Sound like some, I don't know. On the coast of Africa, and concerned at the time as to the means of furthering the moral and material well being of the native populations. And concerned at the same time as to the means of furthering the moral and material well being of the native populations. Now, we already read before that was some bull crap. That's absolute bull crap. They didn't care about the means of furthering the morale and the well being of anybody. But I have resolved on the invitation addressed to them by the Imperial Government of Germany, in agreement with the government of the French Republic, to meet for those purposes in Berlin, in conference at Berlin, and have appointed as their plenipotentiaries, to wit, names of the plenipotentiaries included here, who, being provided with full powers which have been found in good and due form, have successfully discussed and adopted a declaration relative to freedom of trade in the basin of the Congo, its embouchure, butcheries, and circumjacent regions, with other provisions connected therewith. A declaration relative to the slave trade and the operations by sea or land which furnish slaves to that trade. A declaration relative to the slave trade and the operations by sea or land which furnish slaves to that trade. Bro, I'm gonna need a translator, y'all. But hey, you're gonna keep reading. A declaration to relative, a declaration relative to the. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. One time. A declaration relative to the neutrality of the territories comprised in the conventional basin of the Congo. An active navigation for the Congo, which, while having regard to local circumstances, extends to this river, its affluents, and the waters in its system. E. Keeler son assimiles the general principles enunciated in Articles 58 and 56 of the Final Act of the Congress of Vienna, and intended to regulate as between the signatory powers of that act the free navigation of the waterways separating or traversing several states. These said principles having since then been applied by agreement to certain rivers of Europe and America, but especially to the Danube, with the modifications stipulated by the treaties of Paris, 1856, of Berlin, 1878, and of London, 1871 and 1883. 5. An active navigation for the Niger, which, while likewise having regard to local circumstances, extends to this river and its affluents, the same principles as set forth in Articles 56 and 58. I'm sorry, 58 and 66 of the Final Act of the Congress of Vienna. A declaration introducing to international relations certain uniform rules with reference to future occupations on the coast of the African continent, and deeming it expedient that all these several documents should be combined in one single instrument, that they, the signatory powers, have collected them into one general act, composed of the following articles. So these combination of several documents combined into one big one. Chapter 1, Declaration relative to freedom of trade in the basin of the Congo, its mouth and circumjacent regions, with other provisions connected therewith. Article 1. Make sure everything's still fine. My mic is still working. Y'all can still hear me? All right, we're going to start. All right, we're going to read a few of the pages. Probably going to read up to like page 3 or page 4. Then we're going to hop off for part 2 at a later date. But all right. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Yeah, see? Mic cut off in the middle of talking. Hopefully, this ain't all going back. But Article 1, the trade of all nations shall enjoy complete freedom. In all the regions forming the basin of the Congo and its outlets, this basin is bounded by the watersheds or mountain ridges of the adjacent basins, namely, in particular, those of the Niari, the Ogowe, the Shari, and the Nile on the north, by the eastern watershed line of the effluent by Lake Tanga, Tanganyika on the east, and by the watersheds of the basin of the Zambesi and the Loge on the south. It therefore comprises all of the regions watered by the Congo and its affluents, including Lake Tanganyika, with its eastern tributaries. Page 3. 2. Article 2. Nope, that's all Article 1, just number 1. Article 1. Number 2. In the marine time zone extending along the Atlantic Ocean from the parallel situated in, I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, 230 of south latitude to the mouth of the Loge. Oh, this is collateral. Not collateral, latitude and longitude and stuff like that. It's map work. Um, Now the northern boundary will follow the parallel situated in 230 from the coast to the point where it meets the geographical basin of the Congo, avoiding the basin of the Ogowe, to which the provisions of the present act do not apply. The southern boundary will follow the course of the Loge to its source and thence pass eastwards till it joins the geographical basin of the Congo. 3. In the zone stretching eastward from the Congo Basin as above defined to the Indian Ocean from 5 degrees of north latitude to the mouth of the Zambesi in the south, from which point the line of demarcation will ascend the Zambesi to 5 miles above its confluence with the Shearing, and then follow Shiri, and then follow the watershed between the effluents of Lake Nyassa and those of the Zambesi, till at last it reaches the watershed between the waters of the Zambesi and the Congo. Again, I want to preface this and apologize for all of the mispronunciations of these words. I do want to make sure I note that. It is expressively recognized that in extending the principle of free trade to this eastern zone, the conference powers only undertake engagements for themselves, and that in the territories belonging to an independent sovereign state, this principle shall only be applicable in so far as it is approved by each such state. But the powers agreed to use their good offices with the government established on the African shore of the Indian Ocean for purposes of obtaining such approval, and in any case of securing the most favorable conditions to the transit traffic of all nations. Article 2. All flags without distinction of nationality shall have free access to the whole of the coastline of the territories above enumerated, to the rivers where running into the sea, to all the waters of the Congo and its affluents, including the lakes, and to all the ports situate on the banks of these waters, as well as all the canals which may in future be constructed with intent to unite the watercourses or lakes within the entire area of the territories described in Article 1. Those trading under such flags may engage in all sorts of transport and carry on the coasting trade by sea and river, as well as boat traffic, on the same footing as they were subjects. Article 3. Wares of whatever origin imported into these regions under whatsoever flag, or by sea or river or overland, shall be subject to no other taxes than such as may be levied as fair compensation for expenditure in the interest of trade, and which for this reason must be equally borne by the subjects themselves and by foreigners of all nationalities. All differential dues on vessels as well as on merchandise are forbidden. Article 4. Merchandise imported into these regions shall remain free from import and transit dues. The powers reserved to themselves to determine after the lapse of 20 years whether this freedom of import shall be retained or not. Article 5. Actually, I'm gonna stop here on Article 5. So we have a part two coming up on 20 minutes, just shy. But that's just the start. Again, I ain't gonna lie to you, a lot of that went over my head, especially with so I'm gonna have to but it's just there. I still want to read most of it so I can still understand the general point. Understand very little. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because a lot of this shit is word babble. I can say word babble. There's a whole lot of extra stuff going on here. But this is how they took over. But in the name of free trade. But with that, I see you on another date. Um, so with this said, I'm gonna be out. I hope y'all learned something. Again, it's in the description, so you guys can read it yourself in case you guys don't want to wait for me to do another part. Part two, three, or maybe four. Hopefully you guys learned some. You guys continue to learn some interesting stuff about history, and not another.